Okay, so this is part 4, and we're going to layer more textures on this to make it even dirtier than this, than what we have here. So I'll save this as project 2 so that if you want to examine whatever we're going to do now, you can download that from my Patreon page. So yeah, let's add more textures here. So let me see if I can find it. I'll just get the textures that I'm going to use on my second screen here. So we can blend a third texture, and the way we do it is we can just use another mix node here, Shift A, color mix node, and we can mix in the same way we did here, mix this with a different node with a different color, so or a different texture. So again, you can see because we haven't added any texture here, we're just using the color we see here. And now let's try it, and again we can use the factor of 0 to only show this node, and a factor of 1 to show this down color, or just blend the two like this. Or another way to do this is that if we bring this to the top node and change it to whatever, and change the second color to any color we want, we can use blending modes here. As we see, we have value, color, just to blend this color or whatever texture we have here into this here, using the blending modes that are in here that come with Blender. So let's mix another color node here, another texture here. So I'll have this grunge texture, so I'm going to mix it in here. So I'll just drag and drop it in, and see this is how it looks. I think it gives us those nice rain damage strips that you see in here. And we can bring it, let's first preview this node. You see we can use it for this second color, and you can see we have that. So the way we did it for this here, we used the mask to blend the two nodes or the two textures, which was like that. But that would require us to have another texture to use as a mask, and I don't want to do that. And I just want to only have the colors, those rain I don't know what they're called, rain damage strips that you see there, streaks that you see there. So because where the rain damage is not, there is white pixels, I can just use the blending mode, the multiply blending mode, to hide those white areas. And see, now we can see the damage, the rain damage directly there. But I think this is too much, so we can use the factor here to reduce that, or we can just move this a bit up. So if let me see how can we approach this. Because I think this is, maybe it's not too much, because I was thinking maybe we can use a gradient to mask out the bottom part so that these raindrops don't go this far. So let's try doing that, and just so you can see how it's done. So we can add you can use Shift A to add a texture, and the texture we want is a gradient texture. So if we preview this, Control Shift and then click, you can see how the texture looks. It's just a gradient going from this side to this side. We want it to be from up to down, so that we can use that as a mask to mask out that rain. Instead of going all the way from top to the bottom, it fades as it goes down. So you can see this is what we have right now, and I want it to fade as it goes to the bottom, so that those raindrops don't, those rain streaks or damage doesn't go all the way to the bottom. So what we can do is first we need to change the direction of this gradient, and to do that we need to add texture coordinates. So you can use Control Shift click, no, Control T, select the node, and then Control T to get the texture mapping. I'll preview the color again. So we can rotate this. We just need to figure out what rotation we need. Okay, so by 90 degrees on the y axis to have this. But the problem is that there is not a lot of contrast within this image or within this gradient, and we don't really have a slider to control that, or even control how the gradient looks here. So we can use again a convert color ramp to control that, and you can see it also has this gradient, so we can use this as our slider to control the contrast and the positioning of the gradient. So when you bring this closer, you can see we have a really sharp gradient. So I think something around here can be good enough. So we can use this to mask out parts of this gradient. And the way we can do that is we can, let's see. The way we do that, let's first do it on this image, and then we can use the output of that, of the mix node we use here as the output, as the input here. So let's add a color, mix RGB. You can see what we are previewing here. And the color ramp can be our factor now. Let's change this to red and this to maybe purple or blue, just so that we can see what's going on, and we can use this to control the transition between the two. Let's change this, maybe this to white, just so. And now we want this to be our blue part, and you can see we are controlling. We can control the fade, and I don't know if this can be animated. I think they can be animated, these nodes. So you can just, I'm not sure if they can be animated, but it would be cool if you can animate them. So you see, this is the, let me see if they can be animated, because I think it would be cool. So under here, I'm really not sure how you can, but I just wanted to see. But the problem with this is that if we look at the gradient, it is too linear. The cutoff point for all the streaks would be the same, which would not look realistic. As you can see from here, some of these water damage are stopping while others are continuing, and that's what we want to achieve. So we can do that in here using, let me add another texture, a noise. Let me preview this and see if this would be enough. I think it can work, but let's see other options we have. So we have the noise. We also have Musgrave. We also have Magic. That won't work. And then the Musgrave can work. Let's first put it aside. So we want to mix it with this output here, so that we have some jagged edges around here, so that this is not as sharp as it looks. So what we can do is let's preview this node, and let's see change. Let's see if we can scale this up, change the detail a bit, play with the settings here. Because we're trying to give some variation in this gradient here, and let's try mixing this with this gradient and see. Actually, instead of mixing it, we can just use this gradient here, gradient output, as the factor. Now let's see. And you can see this reduces whatever this is, and we can increase the scale here to get more contrast like this. Now if we want this to be more, we can have something like that. So we can use this as our factor, because our factor here, our input here was like this. I guess instead of using the same gradient to control this, we can just duplicate this so that we have more control here, so that this is a different gradient. Am I doing this right? Oh, this should be from here, so that, let me first disable this. Yeah, so that this gradient is different from is a different gradient. I'm actually getting confused right now, but let's preview this here. This is what we have, and this is what we have here. So we can use, thank you. So we can use this as the factor here to have this, and where the blue is, it means that it's where our texture, this texture will come through. So we can connect this to this, and let's preview this. Now if we control this, you can see how that reveals more of that gradient. I think we're putting it earlier, so if we feed this here, we can see this. I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, but it's just experimenting with different gradients to get what you want. Now we just need to mix the results from this node with this here. So I can connect this. Should I can just connect this, add another mix node. So I'll just duplicate this, Shift D, then bring this here. Let me turn this back to mix, and this here. You know what? I think if you are following this, I think I've confused you quite a lot, because I'm also kind of getting confused of how this node setup is. So I'm going to just go through this again to explain how I'm doing it in the next tutorial.